Welcome to Excel Essentials 101. Let's dive in and unlock the power of Excel together. And in today's video, we're going to talk about three functions: Sumproduct, Sumif, and Sumifs. Now, let's look into the example that we have in our Excel sheet. We have a retail example. In this retail example, we have a table that has the items that are sold in my retail shop. I have the type of items, which identify, if it's a graphic tees that is blue, red, white, jeans, the type of jeans, and small or large perfume, right? Then I have the price per unit, how much it costs per unit, and you have the units sold that day in the shop, okay? And this is the revenue that we calculate. Now, let's first talk a little bit about the revenue. How would I run a simple revenue kind of um, formula? It will be basically, if a graphic tees cost me 10 bucks, and which is my D5 column, and the unit sold that day is 30, that means that I need to multiply the 30 units times the $10 per unit. And that will give me basically $300. And let's put this under currency, okay? So $300 worth of blue graphic tees on that same day, okay? Now, if I want to repeat this formula, I just need to drag this down all the way to the bottom, correct? You see how the formula has dragged down all the way to the bottom. If I want to calculate the total revenue of my day of that working day, I just need to sum all this up. So we can use the same formula that we used in the video that's on the link, which is using the auto sum, right? All here to the right. So we go on auto sum and simply we just sum everything up. Good. Now, let's say that you have, okay, my total revenue of that day was $1,700. Okay. Now, I had to use the formula. I had to drag all this down, but I'm going to teach you a formula called the sum product. So what it does is that's going to multiply like each row together, and then it's going to sum the product of the sales that you wanted to do. So for in this case, let's say I want to calculate the total revenue of the day, so I'll use the sum product function. So it's asking me for array 1 and array 2. Let's say our array 1 is the price per unit. And then I click comma, and then array 2 will be the unit sold, right? So in this case, I have my two arrays, the price unit and the unit sold. And when I click on enter, it's going to give me the total amount of revenue. Because what that formula is doing is basically 10 times 30 plus 10 times 20 plus 10 times 10 plus 25 plus times 20 and so on. Because it's the sum of all the product that you have in your two cells, okay? And that's a very great formula you can use. Not only for this example, which is related to retail, but also to other examples that are, let's say you want to create weights or utilization or in any field that you're interested in. The next step would be the SUMIF function. Now the SUMIF function refers to adds the cell specifies by a given condition or criteria. So basically, it's going to sum a range of cells depending on the criteria that you want to sum. So, for example, I only want to sum all the genes, regardless if they're type, or all the graphic tees, regardless of their type. So let's say range. I'm going to create the range, which is basically the items, right? Then comma is asking me for the criteria. In this case, it's what I want the criteria to be. There's two options. Either you can click on You can write it, for example, gene, or you can select it on the cell, right? So I'm opening the quotation marks and I'm writing genes. I need to put genes, right? And then I'm going to select my sum range, which is, let's say, the revenue on this one. I want to sum basically the revenue of my genes on that particular day. So if I use a sum if function, it's going to tell me that, you know what, you sold, or your revenue for jeans that day was $950. Let's put here dollars. And let's validate 500 plus 450 is $950. And that's how you can use the sum if function. Now let's try in the sum ifs. So the sum if function is basically if you have multiple different criterias. In this case, it's asking you for the sum range, which is your revenue column. Then it's asking you for the criteria range. Let's add the first criteria range, which is your item column. Then it's asking you first criteria. My first criteria I want to look into is graphic tees. But instead of writing graphic tees, I can also select the cell, and it's perfectly fine that way too. Let's click on comma. Then it's asking for a second range. So let's say I want to check on the type range, right? Which is the second column, and I click on comma, and I select, I want to know what's the revenue of red graphic tees, for example. And I close parenthesis, and it's going to tell me that it's $200 worth of revenue in graphic tees. Now, these are very simple functions that are very useful functions on your everyday basis and are applicable not only to retail, but into engineering, into supply chain, into logistics, and other areas as well. Thanks for joining me on this Excel journey. Keep practicing, stay curious, and remember, Excel skills open endless possibilities. See you next time in our next video.